Coming up on All About Android, we discuss Google Stadia. I have it in hand. We're going to show it off on the Pixel 4 XL. We also discuss a first look at the 2019 Shield TV, not the Pro. This is the initial one, just below the Pro. Talk about that. Also, RCS Chat in the U.S. is now officially official, thanks to Google. So is the Motorola Razr foldable phone. And we have some of your email and a whole lot more coming up next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/AAA. And by LegalZoom. Make sure your important legal documents are complete with LegalZoom. Visit LegalZoom.com and enter AAA at checkout for special savings. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 447, recorded on Tuesday, November 19th, 2019, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
What's happening, Ron Richards?
Not much, hanging in.
Right on.
Another Tuesday, ready for Android Fun Time.
That's right. Android Fun Time starts now. Florence is not feeling well, so she is not joining us this week. We will miss Flo.
Get well soon.
Get well soon. But returning to the show, it's been a while. It's been a couple of years. Franco, awesome developer, Android developer, and just a classic guest on this show. Welcome back to the show, Francisco.
Hey guys, nice to be back.
It's really great to have you back.
One of the more notorious guests of All About Android history.
One could say his.
There have been a couple more important guests, I think.
Yes, but none speak their mind quite as well as you do, Francisco. That's why. That's why when I saw you were going to be on, I'm like, ooh, excellent! This is going to be fun.
Yes.
So
it was a good time having Francisco on.
I cannot forget that Samsung doesn't care.
But you made up for it because on your follow-up episode, I think even the title was Francisco Cares After All. So, you've come full circle. It's all good.
I think so.
It's good to have you on. You are totally sacrificing your evening and your sleep because it's 1 a.m. where you are, and we really appreciate when folks like you agree to do that. I don't know that I would be so willing to wake up at 1 a.m. for a podcast, but I'm so happy that you are, and it's really great to have you back on. And we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We do each and every week. I would say this week is kind of news light-ish, but we've got some heavy news hardware stuff.
Yeah, we do. There's a lot of stuff that's come out, but we're past, we're pre-holidays, so new hardware to buy for the holidays are out there, and there's not a lot of announcements, and this is the pre-CES time period, so it's going to get we're starting the quiet period, unfortunately.
Yeah, things slowing down a little bit, but that won't stop us from talking about things that people want to know about. Just a little tease ahead. I do have the Stadia here, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But first, I don't want to deprive Victor of his opportunity. It's time for the news.
Since episode 1, we've been notorious for Android Fun Time on Android News.
Notorious in Android Fun Time.
So I like leveraging what has happened on the show already. But Victor, did you have one planned and then you threw it out the window, or did you not were you not prepared?
Good question, Ron.
Let's just say it had something to do about rolling out stuff, but rolling out Android News or to do with the first story.
So you had one prepared, but you saw a better opportunity. You went for it. I like it. Improvisation. Yes. Very good. Similar to how Google has a new thing, and they're going for it.
They're going for it.
That was a better segue in my head. But it is a new dawn for messaging as Google finally did what it probably should have done a year ago and debuted RCS Chat as a replacement for SMS on Android. After much talking about RCS and back and forth with carriers and all this sort of stuff, Google flipped the switch and made it available to all in the U.S. They already made it available in the UK and France this past June. They waited in the US for carriers to come around, but the carriers, as we've discussed on previous episode, dragged their feet and actually indicated they're going to go in their own direction. So Google is now using its own servers to enable RCS instead. Once the carriers launch their own RCS, which is known as the CCMI, or Cross Carrier Messaging Initiative, in 2020, the transition should hopefully be seamless and supported, and it requires the use of Android messages. And so some interesting notes related to this also. Samsung Messages, the default Messages app on Samsung, does support RCS, but only if provided by the carrier, and each model is supported separately. So Samsung users would also need to use Android messaging messages to benefit. Apple still has not said whether it plans to support it at all or not support it. We don't know in either direction. It's not encrypted end-to-end, but it is encrypted in transit. So technically, it's possible for Google to build in end-to-end encryption, but that all depends on getting the GSMA to agree to that change, and carriers have to be on board with that change, which seems unlikely given the past, kind of the precedents of up to this point. But hey, RCS is here. It's changing the world for the better. Francisco, how do you feel about the Google messaging and this approach to RCS? Is this something that you think is overdue, or does it not even matter to you?
Can I curse?
Well, probably not.
Depends on the word,
Probably
yeah.
not.
But be careful.
I think it's a show, to be honest.
Wow.
Apologies, but it's true.
I'm not arguing that whatsoever. It's really been a clumsy kind of approach, clumsy rollout, and for at this point for Google to finally then just be like, okay, well then we're rolling it out anyways. Just makes it feel like, why didn't you do this before? But back that up. Why do you call it an S show or whatever that was?
I mean, Google historically has been pretty bad at anything that's related to messaging.
Yes.
I believe I'm not much into the RCS stuff, but if they didn't roll it before, maybe they just weren't ready, or all the APIs they've built for the carriers to use weren't ready. So I'm just guessing, but I'd rather that they take their time and actually make it work properly and not be kind of half-assed. I think it's a good choice, but as long as Hangouts is dead, I'm just happy with it, to be honest.
You don't like Hangouts at this point. You're happy that it's dying. I still seem to rely on it for some weird reason for at least parts of my communication, but
I mean, for me, it's been a nightmare this past few years.
Yeah,
I've received thousands and thousands of spam messages related to porn. I mean, it's bad. It's very bad. Imagine I'm using Hangouts on my computer, my wife just next to me, and I receive some random message from a bot with some naked person. I mean, it's not nice.
Yeah.
So I had to just turn it off completely, and I think Google just messed it up absolutely all the time. And then they just like to add messaging to everything, like YouTube messaging and that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, enough is enough.
But the thing is that, like, at least with RCS, and I totally agree. I agree with you, Francisco. It is a bit of an S show, but I don't feel like it's completely Google to blame. I feel like the carriers are. The problem with this is that it needs to be an everyone in solution, or it's going to be a problem. And with Apple not indicating in either direction, and the carriers branching off and doing their own thing, it just continues this fragmentation that we see across the mobile market. That we can't. The reason why SMS works is because it worked on every phone. Everyone used the same protocol. The protocol has been around since the 80s, and it was ubiquitous. And with everybody kind of wanting to own, this whole idea of owning their own, kind of protocol or platform or whatever, it's not consumer friendly. It continued. I was just having this conversation the other day. I was talking actually to my wife about cell phones, and more and more the manufacturers and even especially the carriers, but even Google and Apple are not consumer first in a lot of their decisions. And it's really baffling because these are the people using the phones, but they're making decisions that either, are overly benefiting themselves or making it or are consumer hostile decisions. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if they didn't push it as much as we would, because they've already lost to WhatsApp and all those other messaging systems. So I wonder if they have the right motivation to push it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be something that's the same for all carriers, all countries, like SMS. But I think we've had RCS in Europe for a while. I've been using it for longer than a year, no problems. So I wonder if the American carriers, as always, are just slowing it down on purpose.
I think
Maybe.
that's absolutely what has happened.
Yeah.
Is the carriers have no fire lit under them, or they had in mind, well, we don't want to do it your way, we want to do it our way, and that's why they came up with their own, cross carrier messaging initiative. The good news here, at least in the US, is that with Google rolling it out now, everybody hops on. As long as they're using Android messages, they get access to that. I got the update that said, hey, it's available to you now. It really does boggle my mind why Google just didn't do that in the first place, because then everybody would have been there, earlier. And once the carriers do launch their own initiative, apparently the transition will be seamless. So, messages will still also, yes, with a little giggle, because when is it ever seamless? But, that will be supported within messages as well. And that transition will happen. And hopefully we aren't any the wiser. It's just now it works over here instead of over here. But it's all, from within the same app and everything. And that's what we can hope for anyways.
But what about all those devices that don't ship with Google Messages? They ship with their own forked version of the AOSOP messaging platform. What about what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean that's a really great question, right? Like it's all totally tied into this particular app, service run by Google. If the phone doesn't have it there to begin with, then I guess it just defaults to SMS, and it's the way that it has been. And what does that mean? Then it's still a fragmented kind of place where some are getting this and others are getting a limited experience,
I mean, you can get Google Messages from the Play Store, but not everyone knows what it is, where to download it.
Right.
I mean, not everyone likes to get apps from the Play Store, so it's going to be a mess all over again.
Yeah, or if you're a user who's using Textra or using any of the other messaging apps that are out there, you're not going to get it to leverage this, and not everybody who uses Android watches the show or reads Android blogs or whatever it might be. So yeah, the communication, the ramp up is going to be limited as well too. I happen to be on Google Messages, so I was like, cool, sweet. But I don't know if it's working for how do you tell if you're using it or not?
Well, you can go into settings and it'll show you. Let me do this without showing things. So here's settings on my app. Up here, chat features. Connected.
So here it is. So I hit chat features and I get chat features unavailable for this device. Your carrier does not currently support this feature.
Wah, wah. So you haven't had this staged rollout update that supposedly everybody is getting right now. I did get mine, but yeah. And what carrier are you on?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. Not that would matter because this is coming directly from Google, but and as far as third-party messaging apps, I have to imagine if RCS, at this point, that probably moves it up on the list for those as well. So I can't imagine like Android Messages will always be the only messaging app on Android that supports RCS. Talk about a dead plan if that's the case. So Google would want for other messaging app developers to build this functionality into their apps as well, so that it would be as widely supported as SMS. And I guess that remains to be seen.
Yep.
I wonder if there's an API for that. I actually don't know.
An API that's directly related to building support for RCS into the app. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. There must be. I mean,
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know
because
that. Right.
Google Messages isn't 100% open source.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I have to imagine if it's not, it will be at some point. Google wants this to be a success, and that's just kind of how you do it in the Android world. You have to open it up.
Why are you assuming Google wants it to succeed?
Well, they want it to succeed because I assume that they want to finally fix the messaging mess that is Android right now, and that was my understanding of why they created RCS Chat to begin with. So I would hope that they would want it to reach as far and wide as it possibly could, but maybe they don't.
Right.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, we assume that they want mass ubiquity, but maybe they want to take the same approach as Apple and make it the kind of thing you only get if you have a Pixel or whatever. I hope not.
Oh, God, shoot me if that's the case.
But, Francisco, that's a great point, is that we're assuming that this is meant to be for the good of users and the good of the mobile space. But, yeah, I mean, maybe it's not. I don't know. Yeah. That's mind-blowing.
Totally. Well, you want to know what else is mind-blowing? What you can do with motion sense if you're a superstar DJ. Yeah, I told you it was kind of a light week on news. So Google released a motion sense experiment video. And basically, if you scroll down, you can play the first video. They released a video, and then they later released a making of the video. And it's a video of a rooftop DJ performance where the DJ is like flanked, on the top of this rooftop in Las Vegas next to the Palms, or maybe it's part of the Palms. And he's flanked with, I think it's 8 Pixel 4 XLs that are all set up so that when he waves his hand over each one, it starts like the kick drums, or it starts the snares, or it starts the beat, the bass kicks in suddenly. It's DJ Fellow and singer Carol G. So Carol G is singing with some dancers and everything. I just don't know, you guys. I don't know if this is the best demonstration of the power of motion sense. It's just kind of corny and dorky to me. But what do you think?
How does he know which phone sets off the kicks or the bass? Or it doesn't seem like there's a label there anywhere.
I think he just knows because he was probably flown in by Google to kind of learn this setup so that they could shoot the video. And yeah, that's what I gathered from the making of anyways. But watching it, it's just kind of like, I don't know if this is the best example of the power of motion sense. Maybe it is. I mean, I guess that's kind of neat that you could do that, but it just feels a little light to me.
But we've seen all the reviews, and motion sense never really worked perfectly well for that use case, even on perfectly lit rooms. So I wonder, how is motion sense working that reliably on the rooftop where there's almost no light? I wonder.
Yeah, good question. Right.
Nothing but dramatic lighting and post-production. Like it's set up in their favor, really. What I would love is to see this more in a club environment or in a reality, kind of less produced, but that's too risky, and that doesn't accomplish the goal they're trying to set here, which is to make it glamorous and seem awesome and seem like something you want to use for your aspirational DJing.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, anyone who enjoys a little cringe watch can check out the video and watch it in its entirety. I don't know. I just don't think it was a successful demonstration of the power of motion sense necessarily.
No.
It just
it hurt
we are
nerds, so we kind of understand.
That's true. That's a good point.
The technology. So I wonder if I show this to my father or my mother, or my sister, if they understand what's happening, because it's a common scenario, DJing and music. So, we are criticizing from our point of view because we understand it, but I wonder about a normal person, if it actually conveys the message.
Yeah, or maybe that's a really good question. Really good point. Maybe the use case of this, let's just say in a DJ setting, maybe the use case of this tied to a phone where waving your hand over a single phone only does one thing, which is either play the drums or stop the drums. Maybe that's the wrong application. But I could kind of see a future iteration of some piece of technology built with this motion sense in mind, to where it makes that more make a little more sense than just start stop. I think it's the whole start stop thing that just kind of like, okay, you could very easily have just tapped the screen and it did that. Why do you need to wave over the screen in order to do that? Is it, for whatever reason, it doesn't land well for me, but I could maybe see this to be a technology that could improve a performance, maybe, if it's done right. I just don't think it was done right here.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I could easily see this kind of useful for accessibility.
Yes.
Kind of reminds me of a project I was doing with Liam a couple years ago, before he went to Google.
Where he got swallowed up by the Googs. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. But I could see that specific case working great with motion sense.
Yeah.
For example, lowering the brightness of the display, increasing the brightness of the display. You have some visibility. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Google could come up with something very clever to demonstrate more than just waving your hand like a Jedi.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, going back even to where we saw Project Soli in its original incarnation as a project, that was being shown for the first time at Google I/O, and the video having all of these fine motor controls that were being done over the top of the sensor and having that control things. If that was like some sort of a DJ surface or whatever, where you're turning down the volume on a track by moving your fingers, like that could actually be a really captivating, not only like a controller, but from a performance perspective, that could be really neat if it was honed. Waving your hand over it and that being like literally your only control mechanism kind of falls flat for me. But maybe this is the beginning. 10 years from now, this could be how DJs do their job. Who the heck knows? I don't know that I believe that, but hey, maybe it'll happen. Google might think it will. So kind of before we move on, Francisco, I thought we'd check in with you a little bit because you've been busy. You've released a good number of apps over the last few years. And thought we'd kind of check in with the work that you're doing right now. FK Kernel Manager, Home Agenda, Calendar Widget, Nap Time, Servicely, not to mention the Franco kernel. Are you still like managing the kernel?
Sure, I am. I'm trying to not be working on that full time forever. Routing it's not dying, but it's slowing. It's getting smaller, the scene of routing.
Yeah, it feels like it's slowing down.
A little bit. I don't think it's a wise business decision to keep working forever on kernels for a number of devices on such complicated matters. And I don't have any more room for more devices on my drawers too. So to be honest, it's not a flex. But I think I talked about it on Twitter a couple months ago, because after 8 years, it's kind of hard to keep having the same motivation to work on kernels, especially when it's something that's not visible. When you're working on an app, you make a change, you change a color, you see it right in front of you. Yeah. But a kernel is not the same thing. And the motivation isn't exactly there anymore to be doing that all the time for 15, 16 hours a day. But I think it will be a slow transition to just work on apps. That's why I decided maybe last year, to actually support more devices and all the kernels on my kernel manager app. Before I kind of worked on the app to support my kernels and my stuff, but I think that was actually not a very wise decision, and I decided to start listening more feedback from users and not be as proudful as before. And I could probably business-wise be a better decision. So I've been transitioning from last 12 months to support all the kernels, all the devices, with everything I could possibly cram in. It's been so far a very good decision. I have more users, more features, and I'm not dependent of on me to actually release new kernels and new updates to get the app popular and on everyone's end.
So it's more like a kernel marketplace, although there's no money. It's just more like a kernel carousel, a place to go to find kernels that you want to flash, that sort of thing.
Yes and no. You cannot go there and actually find kernels for your devices, but I've added a functionality to flash kernels from my app, regardless of the device and the kernel that you want to flash. Mm-hmm. So maybe instead of going to the recovery, you can just open my app, select the file manager, and just select the file, and it's flashed. So it's a very nice UI, seamless. Users don't have to think about geeky stuff. And that actually opened a lot of possibilities. You can actually flash Magix modules and fonts and all those crazy system models people like to flash from inside the app, so not just kernels. I think that was one of the biggest changes I've made, and people have been enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I would say so. 4.7, as far as the rating in the Play Store. I mean, so many 5 stars on this. So you're doing something right with this. But, I mean, that's no surprise. You've been creating quality apps for years now, so I'm not surprised at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your work on some of the other things, like nap time. I know that was a big deal, Servicely. What's going on with those?
So I don't want to make this sound like an ad, but nap time has been one of my pet projects since Doze Mode was introduced on Android. I think it was Android 6.0.
Yeah, it was probably about 4 years ago, 5, somewhere in there.
And with nap time, you can actually automate how Doze kicks in and when it does. So by default, there's right now at least 2 Doze states. There's a light Doze and a full Doze, but they take some time to kick in based on if you're moving your device around, if you're charged, and so. But since Doze is so powerful, not having it on more often than not, you're not saving that much battery. So with that time, you can just force it as soon as the screen goes off, and have like magically amazing screen off battery time. Mm-hmm. And then I've been adding new features to not only force those, but make like Android battery saver to kick in as well at the same time. Disable auto sync, disable Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, mobile data, because people that like these kind of apps are very battery-wise oriented, so they don't mind losing like instantaneous notifications and just rather have amazing idle battery life. So having all that on the same app kind of makes it very powerful. And the feedback has been awesome, and there's lots of engagement too. And I've been quite happy about everything with that app. And since it's free, people can just download it and enjoy most of the functionalities. And there's a special experiments tab that you have to upgrade to unlock that has a couple more risky stuff. But I think the app is very easy to use. You can use it if you're rooted, if you are unrooted. So I mean, it works for everyone.
So I'm curious what kind of, where does the motivation behind apps like that kind of come from? Is this something where you're like, oh, this is something I wish existed, so you sit down and go and do it, or are you kind of keeping an eye on what kind of the comments that are being made by the community and looking for opportunities?
Most of the time it's something that ties in with my lifestyle. So probably, I cannot recall, but probably I was having bad battery life on my phone while it was sleeping, and I made it because I wanted the Doze to kick in right away because I wanted to save the most battery life. But honestly, with that specific app, I cannot recall what was the motivation, but it was probably this one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Believable.
Yeah, I have to imagine also when you've got, I mean, do you have a team or is it just you?
No, it's just me.
Okay, because you've got like a series of apps. If you go to your page on the Play Store, you've got a number of apps. You're keeping all of those updated. You're not just like updated based on the version of Android, but also feature updated. And I imagine you're getting feedback from all the users. Here's a user request, of this particular feature. Like that's got to be so difficult to manage all of that all on your own. How would you say you're effective in doing that?
I mean, this is my job, so I don't have to wake up early and go somewhere else to do someone else's job or work for someone else. So
lucky you.
I can actually I can manage my own time. So if today I want to work 20 hours on this app, I will. If I don't, I'll just do whatever. So that actually helps with managing my time.
Absolutely.
To be honest. So yeah, but it's hard sometimes because it's kernel apps, user reports, replying to Twitter messages, reply to Twitter tweets, reply to emails, Play Store comments. Then having some time to be with my wife and my family too, not just work. And it's not stressful, just a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth it. I wouldn't trade this for anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a pretty awesome way to make a living, right? You literally you are self-employed around the apps that you create. That's awesome. I mean, that's great. That's a symbol of your success. And
I mean, I was gonna ask what the response. We always say support your devs, and when you can unlock the pro features or do the in-app purchase to pay or whatever. And I was curious to see what the kind of conversion rate is on the apps in general. But if it's enough that you're doing this full time on your own, clearly you're doing something right and it's working.
I don't actually have a percentage. I don't know if it's 5%, if it's 100%. I don't really check anymore because I like to work on whatever makes sense to me, not just because it's making me money or not making me money. So I'd rather not look at the numbers. I mean, I know if the app is successful or not successful based on user engagement on socials and email. So that's enough for me to decide where to work on, not because it's doing well or not. Thankfully, I can do that, but it wasn't like this before. So if it's like this now, it's because people supported me and enjoy what I do. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, and you've kind of created an effect over the years of releasing more of these apps. So that just broadens out your capability of capturing more users, who are engaged with the work that you're doing, and all those numbers kind of go up. So
yeah, I'm just a little bit sad that I didn't invest in Twitter as much as I did on Google Plus. I should have invested a bit more on Twitter earlier than now. But I think that's the only regret I have, because I had a big network on Google Plus, and now it's just that. And it's lots of years of hard work, and now it was just working from scratch again to build a good social presence, or good enough.
Right.
And it's been tough, but good tough, but tough. But
it's frustrating being not dependent, but investing on a platform. And I mean, we less so on the building up a social profile and supporting customers that way. But I back when the Facebook game feeding frenzy was happening and all that sort of stuff, I remember having conversations with folks and warning and saying, hey, if you're building an application that's dependent on another platform, that platform can change their policy or shut down like that, and then you where you left. So you got to be exactly. It's tough. I mean, luckily it seems like things are pretty solidified. I don't think Twitter is going anywhere for the near future, whether for good or for bad. So at least you're good there. But yeah, the Google Plus, I mean, they just decide to turn it off, and that shuts off that hose. So
that's tough. I remember something now. You were asking me about my motivation to make up these apps. I remember The calendar widget one. It's a funny story. That one I remember. I watch MKBHD like everyone else, and I remember sometimes a few months, he showed what was in his phone, and I remember he was using a specific widget, calendar widget, from another indie developer called Jack, but he stopped supporting that app. And then, as I knew the app was going to be discontinued, I thought, maybe I can build a nice widget, and Marquez can show the widget on these videos. So I built the first version in like 24 hours. It was good enough. And then I emailed him and he said, "Hey, Marquez, I know the widget is going to die soon, so I made this not for you, but because of your videos. So it is a promo key for the app. Use it if you like it, nice. If you don't, it's okay too. Have a nice day." He replied back and installed the app. And then once he was showing his phone, and my app was there, and it was quite nice.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's smart. You saw an opportunity, and that's a good success story. I like that.
That's super smart. That's a nugget for developers to know and understand. That shows that you're aware of where the kind of pulse is in this like online community, how to tap into that pulse and how to recognize an opportunity. I mean, there's so many calendar apps and calendar widgets, but apparently there was a very particular one that did a very particular thing or had a nice style that people were connecting with or whatever. You had the ability to recognize that when that goes away, what is going to be replaced? Like, that's opportunity. You know, that's awesome. Really smart.
Yeah, and the Marquez effect is real.
Yeah, it is.
Like top one everywhere.
So Marquez effect is about as real as it gets. Yeah. In the technology world online. That is absolutely true. Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. Everybody is probably very familiar with their work already. If you're not, search for Francisco Franco in the Play Store, and you can see his whole kind of catalog of apps. Been doing this for years, always high quality stuff. And that's part of the reason why we love getting you on the show. We love your perspective on all of this stuff and the work that you do. So,
thank you.
Strongly recommend downloading them all. Get the whole suite.
Yes, you need to release the Franco suite.
Yeah, do like a whole package. You bundle them all up, and that's a great idea. That'd be very cool. So
only $9.99 a month. Seriously,
Francisco Plus, we'll call it.
We're giving you ideas. Other people in the audience are probably being like, "What are you doing? Don't say that." What's that, Victor?
I can probably come up with something better than
5 DVDs.
Plus.
Yeah, probably good. Yeah.
Nice. All right, Ron, you got the ad.
Cool. So we're going to take a quick break and thank our first sponsor. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Capterra. Capterra is the leading free online resource to help you find the best software solution for your business. So listen, what the question we're all asking, what if you could lessen your workload? Well, guess what? With Capterra, you can. Capterra helps you find the right software for your needs fast so you can get back to business even faster. You can compare thousands of software options, read reviews, and instantly narrow your favorites. Find the right software right now at capterra.com/AAA. With over 1 million reviews of products from real software users, discover everything you need to make an informed decision. It's validation you can trust and be confident with your purchase. And don't forget to leave a review and continue to help Capterra be the leading free online resource for software solutions. Searching more than 700 specific categories of software, everything from digital workplace software to video management software. No matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. Capterra believes that software makes the world a better place, and it's true. And because software can help every organization become more efficient, a more effective version of itself. And hey, true story. I was just recently using Capterra as recently as this weekend as for my side project, which I've talked about here on the show, Scorbit. I was looking for a portfolio management suite that could help me manage the different software and hardware projects that we're developing. We're using one solution, is looking to evolve to another. another one. I was actually looking at Monday and Reich in this example here on the screen, if you see that right now, and it ended up on settling on Asana after reading all the reviews and all the different discussion about the different feature set. And Capterra helped me make that decision. And totally true, no BS. I was actually on Capterra.com/AA and looked it all up, and that information proved to be vital and saved me time. So I didn't spend hours, trying one piece of software, moving to another one, trying another one. It helped me zero in on the one that did the tools that had the tools that I needed and helped us be more effective. So join me and the millions of people who use Capterra each month to find the right tools for their business. Visit Capterra.com/AAA for free today to find the tools to make an informed decision for your business. That's Capterra.com/AAA, CAPTERRA.com/AAA. Capterra, software selection simplified. Thanks, Capterra. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Capterra.
Yeah.
You saved Ron's life. Maybe not life.
At least
it
made it easier to make a decision.
There we go. Now let's just say that Capterra saved your life. That sounds sounds bigger. All right, it's time for some hardware. All right, so I happen to have here something that's been the internet has been abuzz about the past couple of days.
Very exciting.
Sure, you've heard Google Stadia is out, and I received the Google Stadia Founders Edition a little more than a week ago. So that's what I have here. This is the controller that comes with, that is part of Stadia. You don't, the Stadia controller is not required for Stadia with the Founders Edition. Like, you could still plug in a third-party controller on certain platforms and do wireless. But the Stadia controller does do things a little different. Obviously, it has kind of a button layout that's specific to the Google Stadia service. There we go. My assistant loves to fire off when I say nothing of the sort. Every episode, I swear it happens these days. I have no idea what's going on. Google's just listening. It even has the assistant button next to the screenshot button. Neither of these are active during the preview. There's a bunch of functionality that wasn't active during the preview. I did do a full kind of like hands-on latency test, all that sort of stuff that you can find on Hands on Tech. But I thought I'd show it off here because it's actually pretty interesting. It promises a lot. I can't say that it necessarily delivers on all of its promises. Stadia, really, the whole crux of this is that it's a game console in the cloud. It's all served from Google's servers in the cloud. So you don't need to buy a console, right? Like for $129, I could get the Founders Edition, which includes the controller. It includes a Chromecast Ultra, so you can plug this into your TV and have it on your big screen. First dibs on a Stadia username, 3 months of Stadia Pro, and that Pro service normally costs $10 a month. That's what gets you 4K streaming. If you don't want to go 4K or don't need to go 4K, you can get 1080p streaming for free. And so you just have the controller or whatever. You just have to buy the game through Stadia, and these are really good quality games, AAA titles. I'd say nothing exclusive to Stadia right out of the gate, and you're still paying kind of the normal price. So you're paying $50-$60 depending on the title. So you're paying a lot, a decent chunk of money for a title that you don't actually own the media for. It's all kept on Google's servers, and I think that's one of the limitations that you really have here, is that you don't own anything at the end of the day. So if Google ever gets really sick and tired of supporting Stadia, what happens to all that media? There's some verbiage in the terms of service that says something about a refund, but it's very loosey-goosey. It's hard to know exactly what would happen if that time came. And when you're dropping $50, $60 on a game, like, people will, gamers will want to know what the heck's going on. But so I happen to have the Stadia app running on my Pixel 4. This was a little mount that kind of came in the box with the Founders Edition. I don't know that this necessarily is included in the Founders Edition, this phone mount, but it was included in the box that I got. So if I go ahead and clip that on, you can kind of see it's right above the controller. At launch, it only works wired with the phone. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'll straighten that out first of all. Go ahead and plug that into the USB-C port in the back. Plug it into the Pixel phone up here without breaking things. There we go. I get a little bit of a buzz on the controller. Now, here's one thing that's pretty funny. Like, okay, so I'm holding the controller. I'm ready to search the store. I have to do it sideways. So that's kind of lame. It's too bad that it doesn't recognize that it's plugged in through the port and automatically switch it to landscape, because literally you just kind of have to do that. But so I've got Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition here. And once this loads up, I mean, it's streaming to my phone from Google servers, and it might take it a second because it has to kind of load up. But I mean, this, so it's running this game on their servers. Obviously, the benefit there is that Google's, computers are jacked up. So you're going to get, in theory, you're going to get the best quality kind of like graphics and experience and everything. I'll go ahead and continue and everything. But
what are those bars on the left and the right side? White bars. What are
these? That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know why that's showing. I don't know if.
Oh, is that my app?
Oh, you know what? That's totally Ron's app. I was like, I've never seen those before. Oh,
that's very funny.
All right, so that's a tease ahead to the arena.
Sorry about that. You can disable those. You can turn those off.
That's okay. It's okay. I have no need to do anything. But that's, stay tuned for the arena, and Ron will show you what those bars are. But there you go. You can see where I'm playing Tomb Raider. I'm going to go ahead and sit down by the fire and actually, I'm not going to do that because that takes a while to kind of power up. But yeah, it's a pretty cool experience being able to actually play a game like this, and of this caliber on the phone, and with the controller connected to it, things feel responsive enough. There's definitely some concerns about latency. What your internet connection is going to be, how fast it is determines the quality of the video that's streamed to your device. And I tested it all the way down to like 10 megabits per second, all the way up to like a couple of hundred megabits per second on like our some of our faster connections here at the Twit Studio. And no matter what speed I was going at, I still kind of ran into times where, what is that? I keep seeing something. I gotta get it.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, do please.
Could you stop, and could we see you like jump, see your finger touch the button so we can see the latency? Okay, that's pretty good.
2, 3. Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty solid right now. I have to say, of all of the different ways that I tested Stadia, I had it going through the Pixelbook. I had it on the Chromecast Ultra. We did it into a Chrome browser on the MacBook Pro. I feel like I get the smoothest connection when it is plugged into the phone. That's been my experience, is that this feels right to me compared to some of the other things, the other instances. Oh, I see what just happened. Yeah, so this is from the review, and there were just times on this larger screen where the picture breaks up, things like slow down and stutter. It's just really, really kind of wild and all over the place. On the phone, I didn't really notice that as much. Things felt way more responsive on the phone, and I couldn't tell you why, but it just does. Maybe it's because everything's a little bit smaller as well. So, maybe this is just locking in at 1080p instead of 4K, obviously. So. Here, I'm going to jump off. Yay! So, I don't know.
I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead. If you have questions, Francisco, ask.
Sure. On your phone, is that a dedicated Stadia app?
Yes. This is what's running on my phone is Google's Stadia app.
Okay. On your computer or whatever you were using on the review?
Yep.
Was that a computer running Chrome, or what was that?
Yes. So obviously Chrome OS running on Chrome. When I go to stadia.google.com, it recognizes that my account is cleared for Stadia. So instead of showing me the sale page of like, the equipment, it takes me to the console area that is very similar to the app. On the MacBook Pro, you can only do it through a Chrome browser. So, probably the same on, I imagine the same on a Windows.
I wonder if there's some optimizations of the entire pipeline from Android itself. That it's not available from a normal Chrome browser on your desktop.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know that.
I have absolutely no idea, but from all the reviews, that's what it looks like. Some engine optimizations on the entire roads that takes everything from the Google service to your phone and from your phone to the Google service.
Right.
Because it's pretty damn fluid from what you're playing right now. I mean,
yeah, I feel that way too. I really enjoy it on the mobile, and it's. Oh, I just almost missed. Oh, I've already looked at that. I've definitely enjoyed playing this on mobile, and I've had experiences where I'm throwing it onto the display with a Chromecast Ultra that have been enjoyable too. I just have to forgive certain things that happen when I do that, where everything breaks up, or like I said, stutters. Sometimes it's like uncontrollable stuttering. That's just like, all right, this isn't even playable. And sometimes it's just like the resolution. You see the resolution suddenly, in a moment's notice, scale down from super sharp to like kind of fuzzy, and then back in, and it kind of jumps all around. And that could be network inconsistencies, could be a number of things. It's really hard to pin it down. But I do know that like a true like hardcore gamer, that's going to be, I think, a bridge too far, just dealing with those kinds of inconsistencies. Is that worth the trade-off of not having to buy a console? I don't know. Like I mean, if the experience is always that iffy, I don't know that it is, because I know for me, I would get really annoyed with that if every time I sat down to play, it was constantly doing that. There's something to be said for the stability of a game that's in a console that is always going to look great, and the experience is going to sound great. And that's a difference.
I'm not sure Stadia is targeted to that kind of segment that you're talking about.
You're right.
For example, if you have friends that cannot see their TVs with huge input lag, even if they're connected to the PS4, their TVs are running those processing stuff that the OEMs like to put, like motion blur and motion whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that stuff you got to turn it off as soon as you get it on.
Yeah.
Yes, but we know that. But if you show that TV with another one with game mode to, again, normal people, they probably don't see a difference. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if with Stadia this is going to be the same thing, that the small latency won't be a problem for the casual gamer, because they cannot understand that that's latency. Mm-hmm. And we do. So I wonder if that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, I gotta say, as somebody who is aware of all that stuff, though, Francisco, but isn't a big gamer. I've owned consoles in the past, and I've gotten frustrated by having to upgrade those consoles and get new ones and lay out the money for that, and then also just in this non-physical media world that we're in the streaming world that we're evolving to, the idea of even if I got a new console. Buying games and keeping, the discs or whatever they need, whatever they are. The idea that this is completely all distributed and cloud-based is attractive, is really interesting, and especially, in a scenario where these phones can do so much and look so good. I've got a really fat pipe coming into my apartment, and, it's a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 people in it. Admittedly, 2 of them are very small, so they don't take up that much space. But I don't have room for a big gaming rig. But if I wanted to, play some games, I could just, grab this controller and go sit in a corner on the phone and use that really good internet connection and be satisfied. So I get that kind of use case for it. It's just gonna be interesting to see if that's, much like Chromecast. I feel like it's a concept that regular people might have a hard time wrapping their heads around.
It really is. I mean, Chromecast is like the perfect example, right? Like, it really is just a game console, like tailored almost perfectly for like a Chromecast. It's streaming from the internet, low kind of entry point, right? Like you could get this for free as long as you buy the game. The streaming of it from the cloud is free. if you happen to have a controller from a current console, you know, there's a good amount of support for Bluetooth controllers. So, I mean, the entry point is lower, and you're right. This sort of thing is not probably they're not appealing. Google's not appealing to the hardcore gamer necessarily with this. Maybe it's good enough for people, you know. But
the one thing about Stadia that we're not touching upon in this is the integration with YouTube and the potential it has for gaming streamers, which, you know, as we all know, with Twitch is a huge business, and a lot of people do that. And Stadia does have the ability to do to stream the game you're playing to your YouTube channel and have people join in and play with your audience and things like that, which, you know, I think is just, it's very early on, you know, as Stadia is just coming out now, to see what the impact of that will be, considering it's also YouTube based only, it's not Twitch based. So whether or not that will be enough of an impact for people to get Stadia for the, you know, interactivity aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm looking more towards the use case of you're playing something on your apartment, you're taking an airplane to some other continent, you take your Chromecast with you, you arrive, you plug the Chromecast to hotel TV, you tether your 4G plus LTE advanced 5G to the Chromecast, and just play as you were playing 10 hours ago on your bedroom, and it just works. That's my use case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd come in really handy. And whether you need the Chromecast or not, you have one of these little dilly bobs, and you just throw it on your phone right above you. You know, what you can't do is be on the airplane and do this, of course. You know what I mean? So there are limitations. It feels like incredibly mobile, but you do need a very solid at this point Wi-Fi connection to the internet. It doesn't even work on mobile networks. As it stands right now. Who knows when they'll be able to do that? But I have to imagine if a solid wired connection to the internet still introduces enough fluctuation in that data that's coming in to, you know, totally throw the video and the audio out of whack at times, then I can't even imagine what a mobile network would do to that. That would I imagine, be kind of a nightmare. They'd really have to button that up, or maybe have a requirement for 5G. Maybe 5G doesn't even, you know, address the issues that would exist there. I'm not really quite sure, but yeah, a lot of question marks as far as this is concerned. It feels early. That's because it is early. You know, Google loves to bring everybody in early on things like this, and so to a certain degree, I feel like I'm cutting Google some slack for that alone. But you know, there's a lot to fix before this becomes a big success, and before it releases early next year. So we'll see what happens.
I'm not sure if they are targeting a big success or a low success. I think it's a bit more broad than that. And as far as I can see, it's a 5-star for me, to be honest.
You're liking what you see.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is what it looks right now, I cannot even imagine how it's going to feel in a couple of months.
Yeah.
With all the feedback and improvements to the whole pipeline and network on Android. The possibilities are endless. And for me, it's a win so far. Even if the experience might have some hiccups, even I have hiccups on my apps, and I control the entire thing. Yeah. So this is a huge undertaking, not just Google, but from the game manufacturers, supporting everything, controller, mapping the control to the game. I cannot even imagine. It's absurd, the amount of moving parts to make this happen. And for the demo, you plugged it on your phone right now, you showed it live, and everything worked. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, pretty sweet. And I think that kind of summarizes how I felt about it. It's pretty sweet when it's working right. And it's not always working right. So I feel like we got kind of, in my experience, we got kind of lucky right now. Like, that was super solid. That was super, stable. There have been times where it's like, that's not stable at all. That's pretty ugly. So it is magical when it's working. And you're right. Give it a couple of months. Google has a lot of skin in this game. So hopefully that means that they're going to really do the work that's needed to make it even better. And I believe that they will. I think that they will. So
if there's one thing they know, it's cloud services. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a big strength of Google for sure. All right. So last week on the show, Ron, you showed off the Nvidia Shield TV Pro. You had just gotten it. You'd spent a week with that, and we talked a lot about that. At the same time that Nvidia released the Shield TV Pro, they also released a Nvidia Shield TV, the 2019 edition of this. This is actually $50 less than the Pro. This is and a little bit smaller and a little bit more limited. So this costs $149.99. And I just got this a couple of days ago. I've been using it for a couple of days just to kind of watch some content on Android TV and everything and to test it out. I have the original Nvidia Shield TV at home. So far, this is actually a really compelling little piece of gear. It's got the same Nvidia Tegra 1X Plus inside as the Pro model. So from a processor perspective, it's the same. It's got 2 gigs of RAM instead of the 3 gigs in the Pro. It's got 8 gigs of storage instead of the 16 gigs of storage on the Pro. Another difference, of course, is the form factor is obviously really different, right? Like it's this cylindrical approach.
I like it though. I mean, like when you look at the diagram of how it can go, it's meant to be like a pass through.
Yes, that's exactly what it's meant to be.
Which is really interesting, I think, right?
Yeah. So power down here. There's your Ethernet port to wire into the internet. Flip it over on the other side, and you've got your HDMI port. That's like a little reset/remote finder button. Underneath the HDMI port is a single micro SD card slot. So basically the IO that you get here is micro SD. If you want to add storage or whatever, there is no USB. The Pro has 2 full-size USB 3.0 ports. This does not. This has a single micro SD card slot. So that might limit you. It might also be exactly what you need. Like maybe that's just all you need. Android 9 Pie, same as the Pro. Same support for the different codecs, Dolby Vision, HDR10, not HDR10 Plus. It does support Dolby Atmos, Dolby Digital Plus surround sound. It does also have the AI-enhanced video upscaling to 4K from 720p and 1080p. Although I've noticed in my playing around with that feature, as interesting as it is, there's a requirement on frames per second. I think it's 30 frames per second. If your content doesn't have 30 frames per second, it won't activate that mode. So that's a little specific. So you kind of have to know that you're feeding it exactly the right kind of content in order to benefit from the neural networks that are upscaling in real time. But it is neat and very effective when it's working properly. It does include the same revised remote, the triangular kind of remote that stands up pretty nicely and has the same layout. It's a really good upgrade from the remote on the previous version of the
It's a good remote,
Shield
right?
TV. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So I'd say the downsides of this. So what do you not get if you're getting the regular and not the Pro version? This will not play HDR content from YouTube. So it's not going to play it in HDR anyways. So that's something to keep in mind. It's missing the VP9 profile from what I understand. That's not going to be included. I didn't do any reading to see if that's missing from the Pro as well, but I know it is here. It also can't be used as a Plex server. And that's going to, and by the way, Plex is a sponsor on the network, full disclosure. But a lot of people get the Nvidia Shield TV because they want to use it as a Plex server or part of their Plex media. And because it doesn't have that I/O, it's not capable of that. So if you want to use an Nvidia Shield TV as a Plex server, you have to get the Pro version, not this one. So keep that in mind. And also, and this is kind of a bummer, it can only run 32-bit apps. So it's not capable of running 64-bit apps, which is kind of becoming a standard on Android. So I think it's kind of strange that they left it out of here. especially considering the Pro can and they're both using the same processor. It doesn't make much sense to me why they would place that limitation on it. If you're using an Nvidia Shield TV for emulation, this could crop up for you. It's a great emulation device, the original one and the Pro that just came out. But there are a decent amount of emulators now that are 64-bit emulators, like the Dolphin emulator, for example, which is a GameCube emulator. And if you want to run that, you're not going to be able to do that on this version. Only 32-bit apps can be run at this time. So some limitations.
How is that even possible?
How is what possible?
The 32-bit only apps, because the CPU is the same. Android works the same, 64 bits. I mean, how is that possible?
It's a really great question. I was really baffled to find that out. It's been reported in multiple places, and and to be honest, like I got this just a couple of days ago. I haven't been able to test it myself, so I'm going off of what I've read in an Nvidia support forum that mentioned.
Is that like a power management issue? Maybe.
God, I have no idea. It really doesn't make much sense to me.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of boggling to me. It was like, wait a minute, why that makes okay?
Yeah,
but that doesn't make any sense because the CPU is the same.
Yeah,
support 64 bit. Maybe it's a bug on their side.
Maybe. I mean, this was from an NVIDIA support article on the NVIDIA site. I don't have a link to right now. I'll have to take a look for that. But yeah, I don't know. I would love for someone to clarify.
I found a Reddit thread that says, to anyone who's confused about this, it seems to be running apps in 32-bit only. There's some cursing in here, so I'm not going to share what it is. Confirmation. So here's a Shield thread. I think it's the same thing that you found, Jason, the forum on NVIDIA.com that says, that 32-bit. Yeah.
So
doesn't
weird.
say why, though. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a part of me wants to believe that at some point there will be an update, or maybe it's an oversight or whatever. This thing's been out for enough time now that I feel like NVIDIA would have, mentioned that if that was going to happen.
This is what I love about Reddit. Like in the comments, they're like saying it's like maybe it's because of the RAM or blah blah blah, and the lack of Dolby Vision or whatever. But then another commenter goes, "The new remote is a huge improvement, though." That's funny.
Yeah.
But the CPU supports that instruction set. I mean, it looks like a bug to me somehow.
I hope it's a bug, because then it could be fixed, and then it could support the 64-bit apps like it should. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm baffled.
Yeah, I'm baffled too. I'm happy you agree, because I didn't believe it at first. But anyway, so that's the NVIDIA Shield TV. If you want to save $50 off the Pro, you can get this. Maybe this is enough for you.
Don't do it.
Keep in mind those asterisks, and that might be worth an extra $50. I think you just get more expandability, you get more power, capability. Obviously, 64-bit versus 32. That could come around and bite you with this model versus the more expensive one. No matter what, it's money well spent if you get the Pro. This is probably a pretty good device as well in use for a lot of people, but it definitely has some limitations. So worth considering, and a neat little form factor as well.
I like the form factor. I think that's really interesting. I don't know. I like the pass-through idea. Just put it behind your TV. Don't notice it. That's cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right.
So we are running a little long, so we're gonna go through real quick here with the. We got
one more hardware story that
you have to mention
that caps, and this has been a year-long journey of rumors finally come to fruition in an official announcement. But the long-awaited, rumored Motorola Razr as a foldable Android smartphone is indeed real and was officially announced by Motorola. So Jason, I feel like we've been talking about this since like last winter. Like last March, I feel like it was the first time we saw that. We've seen renders, we've seen leaks, we've seen things like that. It is a real phone. So the Motorola Razr brings back the clamshell design similar to the OG Motorola Razr from back in the early 2000s. It's got a 6.2-inch POLED display inside and a 2.7-inch quick view outer display. They give you notifications, music control, selfie displays, visual displays from the camera, along with a 16-megapixel camera underneath. It's got a fingerprint sensor and GPS, no 5G support. So the interior display is foldable. The hinge design is unique and prevents it from folding flat, thereby avoiding a crease, which is interesting. Display Tech was originally launched in 2015's Droid Turbo 2 Shatter Shield, as leveraging that. Internals are mid-range. It's running a Snapdragon 710 from 2018 with a 2,510 milliamp battery. It's going to be pricey, though, despite the mid-range specs. It's $1,500, exclusive to Verizon. It can be unlocked via eSIM to work on AT&T and T-Mobile. Pre-order on December 26th and release in early January. And I got to be honest, this is so crazy. I love it. I loved it. I loved it when it was rumored. I think this is fascinating and nuts. And $1,500 is a little expensive, but man, it's pretty cool. And it's a different approach to phones, and that's all I want to see. So I think bravo Motorola for daring to be different and yet familiar.
Familiar enough. What do you think, Francisco? I'm really curious to hear your take on the Razr. Did you ever have the original Razr way back in the day? And what do you think of this?
Sure. Yeah, I had the original one. I kind of like the phone, but I'm concerned about the camera. Looks like it's garbage, and the mid-range processor for the money you're paying.
Yeah.
Maybe they did that because of thermal constraints, because of the phone is so slim. I wonder if that's the case.
I mean, it seems as if they're limited on actual physical space in the phone to store, like for the better camera and things like that. And for $1,500, you're buying the gimmick. You're paying for the foldable aspect of it. So, yeah. I mean, if this was $2,000 and had a better camera, would it be more attractive then? Like $2,000 is a lot of money.
No.
Yeah.
I absolutely don't care.
We've come full circle, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I'm just joking. No, I kind of like that we're seeing different things.
Yeah.
It's cool to see big companies like Motorola pushing the envelope a little bit. At least we don't see any crease or weird display like signs like the Galaxy Fold, where you can actually see the fold display. But personally, I wouldn't buy it because I don't need it.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see the technology evolving. But that's pretty much what I have to say about it.
Yeah, and I'm really curious from the perspective of the fold without the crease, because that is definitely something that people are really noticing with some of these foldables. And if they've got like a mechanism that avoids that, that's a step in the right direction. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's.
I think that's the magic of the phone.
Yeah,
for me.
Totally.
How
they can get that hinge system working, and I'm sure it's really satisfying to open and close it. So
Yeah, the Verge guy was very, very happy to.
I would love it. I hope I'm able to get one of
Maybe
those.
Maybe you'd be too happy
to show off. Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll thank the sponsor. We'll answer a couple of emails, and we'll get right into the arena. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LegalZoom. Running your own business is not easy, but getting help with the day-to-day challenges that you face certainly can help. It definitely helps to get that help from a company like LegalZoom. Business owners all around the country turn to LegalZoom for their help. Over the past 18 years, LegalZoom has helped more than 2 million business owners get started. But every entrepreneur knows getting started, that's just the beginning of your journey. What happens along the way is what's going to determine your success. And that's why LegalZoom has a network of independent attorneys and tax professionals that can help you with their knowledge, their abilities. They can advise you. Knowing where to turn for advice on trademarks, tax law changes, and reviewing contracts puts you at an advantage. Plus, you'll save money by avoiding hourly fees, since LegalZoom is not a law firm. So don't get distracted by legal hurdles and business questions as the year winds down. Go to LegalZoom.com today, and there you'll find out all the different ways that they can help your business. Don't forget to enter the promo code AAA in the box at checkout. That's LegalZoom.com, promo code AAA. LegalZoom is where life meets legal, and we thank them for their support. All right. We've got a couple of emails here. Both of them are a little on the long side, but I think they're both totally appropriate and interesting. So we're going to start with Wyatt here, who wrote into AAA@twit.tv. And this is totally tagging on to the Motorola Razr discussion we were having before the break. Just listen to episode 445, which you brought up how bad the Moto Razr was. I'm not sure how much you do know about it, but I do agree that by 2004 standards, by the way, Wyatt is talking about the original Moto Razr. By 2004 standards, when the phone originally came out, it didn't have the best of specs. What it did bring to the table at the time was it being a modder's dream device that an entire modding community grew behind and supported, which I did play a small part in. The OS, which I can't remember the name of, was not only moddable, it was also interchangeable. So if you bought the phone 6 months after the one your friend has, you could then extract the current OS from yours and then load it onto theirs as long as you knew how to and it was compatible. This was due to the fact that that Motorola would install newer or just slightly different versions at seemingly random intervals on the Razr phone, sometimes even in the same month or less, if I recall correctly. Once you knew how to do that, you found that the icons were also replaceable, completely changeable down to the bitmaps they were created from, along with being able to completely delete and replace the default startup animations with your own custom-made ones. Yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun. I remember this era of modding. You could also enable features that weren't originally enabled on your phone, including improving functions like cameras, video, and picture quality. So if you were heavy into modding, your Razr would start up and look like no one else's and be totally unique to you. You only needed one program to download the OS to your computer, and from there, with a little know-how, to make the changes you wanted and then load it back onto your phone. While this was a very simplified explanation of the process, we didn't have things like locked bootloaders at the time the way we do now. Those were the truly fun days of modding because things like jailbreaking and rooting weren't necessary. Thinking back, I remember the look of shock from the T-Mobile guy who assisted me with an issue on mine as he saw my phone start up with a completely customized animation and different app icons unlike anything he had ever seen. Anyways, just wanted to fill y'all in on a little info about the Razr in case you didn't know. And it took me back. I never had the Razr. I never got the Razr personally. I wanted one, and then I started to see the dust getting in behind the display, and I was like, oh, well, I don't want one of those now. But I definitely had phones of that era that were moddable, that were customizable, but you kind of had to know it was different. It was like they really didn't want, it was just harder. Or it felt harder to me. Maybe that's because it was new. I don't know. Did you had the Motorola Razr, Francisco? Did you ever mod it in the way that that Wyatt is talking about?
A little bit, yeah. But I was very young, and I couldn't afford breaking the phone. So I had to be very careful. And I changed the boot animation. And I think I flashed some mod to mess with the camera too, but that was pretty much it. Yeah. But yeah, it was fun because it was harder harder to find the ways to achieve what we wanted. It was fun. There was lots of resources online too. So yeah, no need for rooting or unlocking bootloaders and that stuff.
Yeah, you kind of had to be able to find the information a little bit murkier. I know in some of the phones that I was even doing something as simple as uploading an MP3 or an audio file that was compatible with the phone so that I could change the ringtone to like a video game sound or something. That's what I really wanted to do back then. And it was incredibly, like I would spend like 2 hours in an evening researching, plugging the phone in, try this. Oh, it didn't work. But like I was determined, but it took forever, but eventually I got it. And I'm sure this is kind of the same era of modding. Did you have the Razr, Ron? Did you ever do this with it?
I actually did not have the
You
Razr.
didn't? Okay.
My girlfriend at the time had the Razr. I remember that. She was very excited when she got it. But I think I was on the my first phones were the Qualcomm. It was like a candy bar phone.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think I had a couple of Motorola's. Like, remember those really chunky candy bar Motorola phones that with a little bit of a display?
Yeah.
And then I went right into the old chunky HTC Windows phones.
Yep.
So I avoided. I skipped. I skipped this. I wanted a little more out of my phone than what the Razr could offer at the time.
You were a discerning mobile phone, cell phone user, as we would call them back then. Cell phone. All right, you got the next email.
Yeah, and I'm actually really curious what Francisco thinks of this one. So George writes in and says, I was just listening to your podcast, the episode, The Cult of Kotlin. I'm behind in episodes, and it made me uncomfortable. Java is the most popular computer language in the world, and it runs on many platforms. Kotlin is getting more popular, but it isn't in the top 20. The original concept of Java was to be something where you could write code once and run it on many machines. In practice, that probably isn't really true. But if you learn Java, you learn a language that you can use in many contexts. Who uses Kotlin for anything but Android development? Google is pushing Kotlin because they control the foundation. Almost every major tech company is pushing a language they have effective control over, such as Swift, C#, Kotlin, etc. The truth is that many of these languages are only used for one type of development. I am concerned that Google is going to nudge developers over to Kotlin more forcefully to the point where maintaining old Java code will be a pain. Google wants developers to switch to a new language that is effectively only used for this one thing, when you might wonder if Google might change their mind about that thing at some later date. As someone who has developed for Android Wear and Daydream, I do think I am investing time learning something that might go away. So it's a good point. It's hard to argue. Kotlin is limited to Android, but I would make the argument that the development world has evolved and changed a bit, and now you're in a more specialized, custom to the platform. But I am not a developer. Francisco is. Francisco, what do you make of this? Is Kotlin short-sighted? Is Java the better option because it's more widespread, or is Kotlin better because it's focused?
I think they both have their place. Kotlin is way more concise and future-proof because it fixes a lot of the pain points of Java, since you have to write way less code to achieve the same thing. But I don't think Kotlin is only for Android. I think it works pretty much anywhere else, because when it's compiled to Java bytecode. So I don't really understand what he's saying, he or she is saying about that. And Google doesn't control Kotlin. Kotlin was made by JetBrains. So I don't understand the reasoning.
Right.
I think Google started supporting Kotlin because the language was growing a lot on the developer scene. So, and people kept asking Google to actually support it, because at the end of the day, it just compiles to Java. So the Arch runtime, I think, pretty much understood what that code was, since it looked like Java to it. So, and obviously Google wants everyone to feel like they can write code. So if Kotlin is this popular right now, I don't see any reason for Google not to encourage people to write less code and more quality code, since less code means you probably write less errors, so less bugs too. So I don't understand the reasoning of that email, to be honest. It seems like his or she, it's a he or she.
His name is George.
Doesn't matter, but I didn't catch his name. So, I mean, I think he's just salty that he invested too much on Daydream, and now he's concerned that if he tries to go to Kotlin, the same thing happens. So he's like kind of firing against Google. That's what seems to me. But I understand what he says, because it's hard to commit to something that Google commits to, because they like to kill stuff very often. So that's why I haven't jumped to Kotlin yet, because I'm still seeing what's going to happen in the future. It looks like it's going to stay, and it's going to keep growing. So I might have to jump ship soon. But that's pretty much what I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, Kotlin, I mean, I think it's a great distinction, is that, we often talk about Kotlin in the context of Android and Google, but Google's just supporting Kotlin and pushing Kotlin. They don't actually, it's open source. JetBrains developed it. It's been around for 8 years now. It came out in 2011, so it's been evolving. And the way I always looked at it is that and what I suggest people want to get into it is, I say, learn Java and then learn Kotlin on top of Java, because Kotlin is kind of like an extension of Java, or another approach to it. It's just more efficient and easier to work with in the context of Android. Java definitely is more ubiquitous, just because it's been around long and more machines have the capability of running it. You could write code that could work in different instances, things like that. But who's to say that Kotlin doesn't take that same path in its next 8 years? So it's interesting.
I mean, personally, I like some of the features of Java. Not feature, but with Java you have to write lots of code. It's very declarative. Personally, I like that, because I like to look at the code and understand it right away. And sometimes Kotlin looks to me too abbreviated, and that messes up with my brain. But that's personal. I'm sure lots of people like to write less code and actually prefer Kotlin. But I think it's going to keep growing. The community loves it, and it's everywhere. So might as well just start learning.
The community loves it, and Google has declared Kotlin first. But you're right. How long does that last? Who knows? Right now, it seems like it's going to last for a while. It would take a lot for Google to suddenly turn, into a different direction as far as that support is concerned. So,
yeah, sure. Because if they started to push for it, and there's millions of developers already on the platform working on it, if they decided that it means that they won't just drop it overnight, because it would affect a lot of people.
It really would. Absolutely.
It's a big business too, so lots of money for Google. So they don't want to mess that up.
All right. Excellent stuff. It's time now for some more excellent stuff in the arena.
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
All right, last week, twit.to/AAA-poll446 is where you went. And if you went there, or when you went there, you placed your vote, and you found...
Before you reveal it,
okay,
I said last week I had a good feeling.
Okay, last week...
Did that good feeling come through?
Yes, Ron. That good feeling came through. Temp Mail wins at almost 33% of the votes. Two Bird, second place at 32%. So you were really close. It was between you and Two Bird.
Two Bird loses by 2 votes.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yep.
But appropriate. Third place, my game, 1945. Fourth place, Cross Updates. That was team guest Kevin Toffel. So that means that, Ron, you were the winner. So I don't believe that Wade County's in the chat today.
Yeah,
we miss
Wade
you, Wade.
County's been busy on Tuesdays, but as we all know, Flo is in first place. She remains in first place. The guests remain in second place.
Yeah.
With this win, now I move further away from you, Jason.
Yeah, so you're third.
Place. And Jason, you were in last. It is not over. We have many weeks to go. I know mathematically
Not that many.
I may be eliminated, but I still think I'm on a roll, and I think I'm going to win. I'm going to beat Flo. I'm going to make magic happen. So we'll find out.
That'll be interesting. How you totally overcome the rule of mathematics. But we'll see. Anything could happen, I suppose. Reality is but a construct.
We're through the looking glass here, Jason.
Right. All right, mine's pretty quick. It's called Tennis, but it's tennis spelled with an exclamation point instead of the I. So an upside down I, let's say. It's in early access right now. The game kind of has a little like Wii quality to it with the characters. It's really just a pickup, like an easy pickup game of tennis. And I like the game mechanics of it. If you do a search for Justin Fincher, he's the developer. I found that it was really hard to find this without plugging his name in there as well. So there it is. I'm on the court. Here, I'll turn it up just so we get some sound here. All right, so I'm going to do the service. Let's see here. I want to make sure I don't get any reflections. Okay, there I go. And I can hit over there and over there and it's just straightforward, easy to pick up and go tennis game. I like the visual look of it. It's really simple. Sometimes you can get these kind of like speed shots in the opposite area, and I wasn't able to do that. I'm not sure what happened there. Suddenly it paused. It's okay. Well, it's one of those moments where I guess we just watch as the game stops working or something. I'm not really quite sure what happened there. I haven't had that happen to me before. Well, it's fun when it works. It's called Tennis, and search for Justin Fincher. It is a new game, so let's give it a little bit of slack here. It's new in the Play Store. It's early access, and I think it's like 100 installs. I really wish I could have at least finished a round. I finished a few already, so I'm kind of bummed that I couldn't do that. But it is fun when it continues working. This is obviously a bug that needs to be reported. I'll send this video to the developer and say, hey, just so you know, I like your game. It could be just a little bit better.
With different gestures, can you slice and topspin and stuff?
Oh, no, I can't. No, I haven't noticed that there's anything as far as like topspin. That would be really nice, though. But, I'd brought a game into the arena, I don't know, months ago. It was like a ping pong master, that was really like an easy tap to play ping pong. And I don't know, apparently there's something that I just really like about the kind of net game mechanics and something that isn't overly complicated. And this really isn't. It's in my time playing with it when it works. It's just really easy to swipe left, swipe right. And it's just kind of a fun approach to it. At a certain point, you kind of have a bonus round where you're shooting at a target and you're trying to get all the hits at the target. So it has a little variability. It's early access, though, so cut it some slack. It's okay, Justin. Your app is not the first to do this in the arena. Thank you for making it. It's called Tennis. Do a search for Justin Fincher Tennis, and you'll find it in the Play Store.
He's an indie developer?
Oh, yes, indie developer. Here, I'm going to see if I relaunch that. I think everything is back after I relaunch it. But, and yeah, I haven't had any ads, although it alludes to seeing an ad, but I haven't had any appear for me. There's different characters and stuff that you can kind of bring into the play field as well. So, anyways, it's called Tennis. Check it out. Okay, Francisco, what is your app? And I'll show it off while you talk about it.
My app is very simple. It takes like 10 seconds to explain. It's an app to listen to a certain type of music that's very calm, very relaxing, to help you kind of focus or do whatever you like to do, and just feel like you're in Zen mode. And sometimes it helps me focus on my work. It's free, and there's a premium unlock that I think improves the audio quality and like gives you more radio stations. But and I like the interface. the lo-fi bits graphics in the background kind of looks cool too. And I think it has a very high rating too in the Play Store. It's very simple. I just like it very much.
Nice. So I've got normal right now, 96K. If I was to upgrade to premium, it would be HD. That's 192K.
I think it unlocks a few themes too.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's rad. Love it.
It's chill music. I cast it to my Google Home and just enjoy doing whatever, listening to something very calm without having to open Spotify and be spammed about all those artists I don't give a crap about. Just listening.
Right. Good coding music, I'm sure. I imagine, like, if I'm ever writing something for here at work and I'm listening to music that has a bunch of words in it, it becomes really hard for me to concentrate. So I want music that has no words, but something playing in the background. So I imagine this would be good for that too. So Lo-Fi Radio is the name of the app.
I think it's 4.7 rating or something. It's pretty high.
Very nice. And it plays in the background when I minimize. It's still playing. Awesome. Great pick. That is Lo-Fi Radio. All right, Ron, what is your app?
Yes, so my app, I gotta admit, I'm on a bit of a roll. What is this now? 3 wins in a row, I believe.
Yeah, you keep calling it.
I'm trying to go for it, and I'm hoping that this one is good because this is for us power users of Android. It is called Ubiki Touch, or Ubiki Touch, I believe. UBIKI Touch.
Sounds about right.
As opposed to doing and if you haven't done it yet, Jason, you got to do all the permissions and all that fun stuff. But basically, I'm going to distill this app down into 2 words: gestures and automation. All right. So one is, as we saw earlier, and you can see here, as Jason, those are watching on the video, and for those listening, I'll describe it. On the left and the right of the screen, there's like a little thin bar. And those are, you can basically set up either on the left, on the right, or on the bottom, or all 3, or just 1 or 2, whatever choice you want to do. You could set up small touch areas that allow you to trigger the gesture control. And they do provide 3 different kind of shapes. You can go in a pie shape, a curve shape, or a wave shape. And what it does is it kind of pulls an overlay on when you swipe from that section of where you can do those gestures. And the demo, Jason, that you're walking through it gets a little complicated. So I don't honestly think that's a good kind of scenario. I think it's better now for me just to tell you what you can do with it. But so what you can do is when you have those areas, you pull out and you're able to trigger gestures in the touch areas that you specify. And it's very subtle. It's hard to see here in the video, but what you can do with those gestures, just stock alone, there's a list of global actions that you can perform through those gestures. So you can remap a back button, you can remap the home button, the assistant button, taking a screenshot, search, opening assistant, open the keyboard, toggle any of the settings, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, rotate, brightness, music player pause, previous or next. So if you don't want to use those actual app kind of integration points, you can configure the gestures so that when you pull out the trigger area, you're able to then do one of those specific actions. But what you can also do is you can program automation. So if, for example, every day you open Gmail and you've got 3 email accounts you need to go through and you want to, mark everything red or archive everything or whatever, as opposed to opening the app, choosing the account, hitting the email, hitting archive, you can build out a whole recipe of automation action that can be triggered through these gestures. So super powerful, super customizable. It's really a lot to get into, and so that's why, Jason, I don't know if it's good to show that because it's hard to configure and do all that stuff. I mean, it's not hard, but it's really involved. But it takes all the power of automation, and if there are tasks that you do quite often on a repeated basis, setting up a gesture to just quickly trigger it and be able to do it without and save yourself a bunch of different button presses and swipes and things like that can be super powerful. For me, I use automation a lot in common things that I type. So you set up, I set up a automation around my signature, right? Where I say, let me know if you have any questions, give me a call if you know, it's the same thing I write in emails all the time for work. And in this way, I just kind of, I swipe from the right, I do the action, and then it fills in the text for me automatically. I don't have to type all that stuff. It saves me time. So it's called Yubiki Touch. It is free in the Google Play Store. They do have an in-app purchase for, I think, $3.49. That gives you a pro version that gives you an unlimited number of applications. You're limited to just 2 in the free version. So if you want to unlock that, you need to pay. And access to more actions, ability to launch applications or a shortcut. And of course, you can completely customize stuff with the animation, size, colors, and all that fun stuff. So it's a pretty good app. It's pretty powerful. I was impressed. Sorry, it's not very demoable. Jason, I know you were working with it, but the little swipe thing is very subtle and it takes a little bit getting used to. But here in the video, you can see how it's working in their demo video, and it's super fun. Jason, I feel like this is the kind of app that you could dive into and really change the way you use your phone.
Yeah, totally. I think what I was running into is that the gesture control on the phone was getting in the way of pulling that from the side.
Got it. Yeah.
The gesture in Android 10 is swipe from the side to go back, and so I was trying to locate it. When we were in the Stadia, it was there.
Yeah,
but here it was defaulting to the system gesture instead of that. So keep that in mind. There might be a better way to tailor that or trim that. To that.
Yeah, and if you're not running Android 10 and you want gesture control, if you're running an earlier version of Android, this is a great way to get gestures. And just those automation stuff are just amazing. Anytime you can automate repetitive tasks, you'd be surprised at how much that kind of frees you in using your phone. So.
Yeah. Awesome. That is Yubiki Touch, all one word. All right. So this week's poll can be found at twit.to/AAA poll 447. twit.to/AAA poll 447. You can place your vote for your favorite app or game this week. Is it Yubiki Touch? Is it tennis? Or is it lo-fi radio? Victor has targeted lo-fi radio and has placed his vote. Good work, Victor. Team guest gets a vote. All right. And now it is far too late where you are living, Francisco. So it's time for you to go to bed. We really appreciate you taking time out of your sleep to join us on All About Android. It was really great having you on, Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always fun, and I hope I'll be back. Absolutely.
We'll bring you back once again. Everybody can, of course, follow Francisco on Twitter at @Francisco_1990. Just do a search for Francisco Franco in the Play Store. You'll find all of his fantastic apps. And yeah, man, keep up the great work. You're doing awesome. You continue to do awesome. And we're always happy when we can get you on the show. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And Ron, what's new with you? What you got going on?
Just not enough time in the day, man, between changing diapers and doing work. But yeah, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Capterra, I got my little side project, our pinball hardware development project. Go check it out at scorebit.io, where we're connecting pinball machines to the internet, making a lot of really good progress. And we're looking at a early 2020 kind of public launch and start shipping product, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. And every time, Jason, we talked about how hardware is hard. Yeah. I can now, from experience, tell you, yes, hardware is hard. So,
from the other side, you've seen it from the other side.
But it's so much fun. So
still, I'm sure it's fun, and it's super impressive from the outside looking in at all the work that you're doing with Scorebit. So congratulations on all that. Thanks to you, Victor. Thanks for always pushing those buttons.
Oh, no problem.
And the sultry, dulcet tones of your news bumper.
Oh, that's why I went with lo-fi radio. And that was the demo that worked.
Fair enough. Good point. Thanks for calling that out. Yeah. Hey, sometimes the demo that works is the demo that wins. You can find me here on the Twit Network, although actually not, because I'm going to be leaving on Thursday. Going to go on vacation But I'll be
well
back.
deserved.
Yes.
Well deserved.
So thank you. I can't wait. Gonna be sitting on a beach, looking forward to it. I can't even tell you how much I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not jealous at all.
I'm just gonna.
Where are you going?
Going to Maui, going to Hawaii. So
nice.
yes, have not been in 10 years. So a little too long to wait. So we're going. Family's going. We're gonna spend some time there. So I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Next week on the show, Ron, Flo. You guys will be holding down the fort next week and the week after. I'll set you up and make sure you're all set up for those appropriately and everything.
We'll be here. We're excited.
Right. Thank you. I do appreciate it.
Next week?
What's that?
Who's the guest next week?
Next week we have Wen Tu Dao, actually.
Very nice.
Yes. Welcoming.
He's very friendly.
Wen back to the show. The following week don't have booked yet, but I'm working on it. So we'll have you all set up. Best ofs, twit.tv/best of. If you want to place a moment in time into the best of category so that we can look at it on any of our shows, but also on this show so we can put together an awesome best of for the holidays. That's twit.tv/best of. Any information you have, you can just place it there. Even if it's a little bit of information, that's better than no information, and we appreciate that you do that. But that is it for this week. This podcast publishes every Tuesday evening. It publishes a little bit later in the evening, but we get it out. If you subscribe, you'll get it the second it publishes. Just go to twit.tv/AAA. That's our show page on the web where you can find all the information, all the subscribe links, YouTube links, audio, video, players, everything you need to know is there. And you can follow Twit on the socials. If you want to find Twit, you can just search for @Twit on Twitter, twit.tv on Instagram. We're all on those places as well, so just do a search for our name and you'll find us. But that is it for this week. We'll see you next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.